Hi everybody, I'm Susie from Money A&E. Today I'm really pleased to be joined by Jessica Taplin. Jessica is the CEO of the British Gas Energy Trust, which is a charitable trust working to help people to avoid or to get out of fuel poverty and energy debt, and to improve their overall financial resilience and financial situation. The trust is also currently funding Money in the Community, which is a project co-led by Money A&E, tackling poverty and fuel poverty in East London during Covid-19. Jessica, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today.
It's delightful, thank you.
My first question is, could you tell me a bit about, do you say BGET, B-G-E-T?
Yes, it's rather a mouthful, isn't it? The British Gas Energy Trust, or BGET. Yeah, BGET's fine.
I'll say BGET, cool. Could you tell me a bit about the history and the mission of BGET? What is an energy trust by definition? What does that mean?
Absolutely. So back in 2004, many of the energy providers decided that they wanted to set up grant-giving bodies to help them support people facing fuel poverty. And the British Gas Energy Trust was the first one of those back in 2004. Many other energy trusts running today have been outsourced to commercial providers or are working in partnership with organisations such as Citizens Advice. So we are really unique with the fact that we are fully autonomous and independent and a dedicated charity. So the Trust's mission is to alleviate the detrimental impact of poverty. We want to help people avoid the burden of energy debt, make informed energy choices and improve their money management skills. We envisage that this will lead to healthier homes and enhanced well-being, as well as reducing stress and anxiety in households.
And I noticed that your approach tends to focus on energy debt and fuel poverty, but also you support advice providers that are kind of dealing with a whole range of other areas of support like employment, housing, financial well-being. Was that very holistic approach? Was that very deliberate from the outset for you guys?
Not from the outset, but from about 2018, absolutely. The Board of Trustees made a strategic decision to focus funding on grants for not-for-profit third sector organisations who provided holistic support, money, energy and advice services. A key aim of what we do is to enhance the capacity of the organisations we fund, enabling the development and provision of holistic support. Our grants to organisations are aimed at increasing advice capacity and the ability to deliver a greater depth of support, so helping organisations reach more of those people most in need. Mm-hmm. I think the reason for this is that poverty isn't a single strand issue. There are often multiple issues and challenges that the family or household might be facing, and any number of reasons, from bereavement to redundancy or illness, that they can be in fuel poverty. That's why we want to support projects with a client-centred approach. They may have health conditions, be vulnerable, be on low income, be isolated, especially now with the pandemic, or have high levels of debt, poor housing or insufficient heating. It's not solely about helping people who are struggling with fuel bills. All of these needs need to be addressed. Otherwise, the issue isn't addressed and the problem remains. If you support just one element, the issues are likely to return. So it's more of a sticking plaster approach, whereas by supporting the multiple issues that client might be facing, we do hope to help them resolve their financial challenges and actually get back onto an even keel again.
It sounds very much kind of chimes with what we do at Money A&E as well. We know that from our own experience, most of our staff have had money challenges ourselves as well, and debt and money challenges, money problems tend to, as you say, co-occur with other challenges in our lives, whether that's housing, employment, unemployment, and so on. While the challenges are complex and have these many strands, the solutions also need to have these many strands and address these different areas.
You're exactly right, and that's one of the reasons that Money A&E stood out amongst the other 50 projects that we fund across England, Scotland and Wales. Money A&E and others provide a greater depth of wraparound support services to support people in financial hardship, and that helps address the underlying causes, whether supporting families or households, but it helps, as you say, regain control of their finances, enabling them to manage better, so leading, hopefully, to reduced anxiety and a healthier home environment and an ability to be able to stay out of debt.
See, the last 12 months have been so challenging for so many people, especially financially. 600,000 people, according to Citizens Advice, fell behind on their bills in 2020, and nearly 700,000 have been pushed into poverty as a result of COVID. I know that BGET have been doing some really significant work to try and counteract that in the past 12 months or so. Could you tell me a bit about what you guys have been up to and how the past 12 months have been?
It's been really difficult for so many people, truly dreadful, both emotionally and financially. And as you say, Citizens Advice research shows that nearly a quarter of energy customers, that's over 6 million households, are worried that they're going to struggle to pay energy bills because of the pandemic. A report from the Social Metrics Commission showed that those unemployed prior to the crisis and already in the deepest forms of poverty had been most heavily impacted by the economic fallout, and groups already overrepresented amongst the population in poverty have also been most heavily impacted by the cuts. This sadly comes as no surprise, as it's what the funded projects have been sharing with us since last March, projects like Money A&E. They're also reporting more hardship and need for support from the younger end of the population, as well as households who've never needed help before, but have now expended their savings, keeping the wolf from the door during lockdown. This again is supported by research from the Resolution Foundation, which states that the poorest fifth of households are 50% more likely to have seen their savings deteriorate rather than rise during the crisis. These households have also seen their debts rise rather than fall during the crisis. So we're really working hard with the projects that we support to try and address that. Mm-hmm. Over the next year, the Trust will make grants totalling £1 million of energy debt relief funding, supporting up to 5,000 households with grants ranging between £200 and £600 to write off their energy debt. But in some cases where very great levels of hardship are evident, those grants can go up to £2,000. Quite uniquely as an energy trust, our grant programme is open to British Gas and non-British Gas customers. On top of the debt write-off grant programme, we also recognise that households with occupants who have disabilities or caring responsibilities or 3 or more children may have higher costs. So we use a process that helps ensure that we don't exclude some of the most vulnerable families due to things like a blanket household income cap.
That sounds like it must be quite transformative for people facing energy debt. So you guys are supporting the advice services with your partner projects, but also directly to individual households. We have 2 main funding streams. We have the grant scheme aimed at funded organisations, so frontline, third sector, charity or social enterprise money advice services working in communities across England, Scotland and Wales. We also have £1.2 million of funding that goes directly out to individuals and families. £1 million of that is, as I said, on the debt write-off grants for energy debt. We've also got a smaller fund which helps replace boilers which have been condemned, and an additional fund which also provides energy vouchers to people who can't afford to keep their house warm. And how do people apply for that? Is it through your website?
So the new scheme for energy debt write-off grants begins again on the 1st of July. So as of the 1st of July, go to our website, have a look. You can apply online. It's hopefully a fairly simple process. We do ask that all applicants have sought money advice first. We think that's really, really important, as there might be another better avenue for that individual or that family with regards to their debt management.
It sounds like a really great scheme, really doing really great work supporting people facing energy debt. Can you tell me a bit about kind of the impact it's having on people who are receiving those grants and the kind of situations they might be facing?
Everyone who applies is facing a really hard time, otherwise they wouldn't apply, and it's really, really challenging to look at the applications and go through and decide who is awarded a grant. And we have clear gateway criteria which help us do that, and again that's really open and you can see that online. With regards to the people who receive the grant, 73% of grant recipients for the debt write-off programme have incomes under £16,190. Over 3/4 of recipients have health issues, or someone in their house does, about 77%. 45% have a disability, and really sadly, 24% have recently experienced a bereavement. In addition to that, over half of the respondents have experienced recent reductions in their income as well, about 55%.
Do those figures reflect the impact of COVID, I'm guessing, then, on communities as well?
It's been really interesting. We look at a lot of data to help ensure that our grants are getting to where they're needed most. We have seen many of the applicants stating on their application form that the reason their household income has dropped is COVID. And even if it's not directly through redundancies, so a lot of the people who are applying, as I said, have either faced rising costs due to being at home more, they've had their income drop, they're facing issues because of illness or being on potentially furlough, or very sadly, in some cases, bereavements. On top of that, we are seeing a rise in applicants who've recently seen a change in their household circumstances. So, for example, divorces. So there's quite a lot of data to suggest the impact of the pandemic is really affecting people's household incomes.
That very much reflects kind of what we are seeing at Money A&E and the impact that it's had on many of our service users' lives. I spoke to a client recently who came to Money A&E never having applied for benefits before. He was in his 50s and lost his work as a result of COVID-19, and having waited several months to come to us, as is kind of quite common with money issues, we often feel a sense of shame or kind of not knowing what to do. We put this off. It's very normal. But a kind of story like his is quite typical in that he was struggling with health issues, with loss of employment, not knowing quite how to go about applying for universal credit or other benefits, and also facing some large energy bills which he was struggling to pay. So actually the support that we've got from BGET, from British Gas Energy Trust, has enabled our advisors to really support with cases like his, where a kind of multi-strand approach to advice really will have the most impact. You know, just dealing with the energy debt on its own wouldn't, kind of resolve the situation for, improve his quality of life long term. But being able to kind of tackle all those different issues kind of at the same time has meant that he's got back on his feet financially and is now receiving the universal credit that he's entitled to. And I think he's actually managed to pay off the outstanding energy debts now and kind of get back on an even keel with that. And has your work during COVID targeted particular areas or communities?
Improving the identification of vulnerable clients and targeting our funding at the most in need communities is a big thing for the Trust and will remain a big thing. Using data to direct funding and services to where it's needed most is vital to ensure the best outcomes and positive social impact of funding. The Trust's £800,000 COVID response fund, which launched last summer, which Money A&E are funded through, targeted 9 really quite small areas, identified through using data mapping, using economic and health indicators, as well as data on things like housing stock energy efficiency and other data on local communities. The mapping allowed us to target specific geographic communities where early data was already indicating they'd be particularly struck hard by COVID, and also, as well as being struck hard, might not have the capacity to respond. It identified priority, high need, low advice areas. This also ensured we weren't inundated with too many applications which we couldn't fund, which would have increased programme costs and meant many charities wasted precious resources applying for something there was a very small chance of getting. So subsequently, we've now obviously funded 9 fantastic projects, including Money A&E, since October last year. Mm-hmm. And using the data now available, we can actually see the areas the mapping identified were absolutely spot on, with funding going to organisations such as Rosendale and Hindburn Citizens Advice, the Xynthia Trust in Leicester, and of course yourselves in South and East London. All areas that have felt the awful socio-economic impact of the pandemic particularly hard. We're going to continue to use mapping, and alongside Turn to Us, the Buttle Trust and New Philanthropy Capital, we're sharing open data, and in this thing called Find, the Local Needs Database, which is an open access mapping tool. This currently shows at a local authority level where our energy debt grants are going and aligns it to key indicators such as fuel poverty. By sharing our data, we hope to encourage others to share their data. This will help ensure that programme and service design is carried out with as much information as possible using live data, so funding goes where it's needed most at this critical juncture post-COVID.
Looking to the future, how do you hope that we can build back stronger coming out of the pandemic?
This year, the charity will distribute 5 million in grant funding. 3.8 million of that will go towards funding fantastic projects such as yours and not-for-profit charitable projects delivering frontline holistic services in diverse communities across England, Scotland and Wales. We're also going to inject a further funding boost of up to 500,000 to help the organisations we support meet up the pent need that the advice sector expects to see as a result of the economic fallout of the pandemic. We believe households who are struggling now are going to start struggling even more as we go into winter, sadly. In light of this, an additional 1.2 million will be distributed in grants for individual and families. This launches on the 1st of July. This will either help pay off fuel debt, hopefully before the winter period, before it starts building again, replace condemned boilers and heating systems so people can have warm houses, or indeed pay for emergency fuel voucher top-ups for prepay meters. So we're also going to be planning for next year, so 2022. We're delighted that the Energy White Paper provided clarity on government's intention to extend the energy company obligation to 2026. Because this is really exciting for us. This means that we know that we're going to be having another round of funding from 2022 to 2026. The government has said they're committed to consulting on reforms to improve the fuel poverty targeting of the scheme, which again is really positive news. And we'll be working with British Gas as our funder to ensure that the British Gas Energy Trust is in the best possible position to grow and enhance our support over the coming years as we support vulnerable communities across the three nations recover and get back on their feet after the pandemic.
Jessica, thank you very much for talking to me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Susie. It's lovely to talk to you.